Chapter 31. The Devil's in the Details. The huge uptick in Latin American gang activity had inspired Everhard anew. If things went according to plan, he'd force Hispanics into acting against their own best interest in spite of themselves. Inasmuch as the Catholic Church had tremendous influence in the regions he was interested in, Everhard would bring his concerns directly to the Holy See. Try as he might, Glory couldn't dissuade the increasingly megalomaniacal president from his intentions. Part of Everhard's stratagem was for the benefit, as regarded, the recent passing of a preeminent cardinal. Amid centuries-old frescoes depicting the life of Saint Martial, the apostle of the Gauls, Edric Everhard soberly presented his proposal to his host. Let me be plain. These are disconcerting times, so much so that in order to preserve the present world order, I find it necessary to open the door on what has become the new crusade. Glory, wary of Everhard's tone, to say nothing of the Pope's sensitivity to the reference new crusade, cautiously interceded.
Your Grace, if I may, we offer our deepest sympathies for the loss of your beloved compatriot. Trusted colleagues are but few and far between.
Pope John nodded his acceptance of the condolences, but Everhard's cryptic prologue notwithstanding, he wasn't exactly sure why the Americans were here. Pope John wasn't the least interested in aligning himself with any UCC policies. He had his own agenda, an agenda steeped in centuries of political machinations that far outstripped the concerns of the impious idiot standing before him.
It's true,
the Pope said, gathering his robes gingerly between swollen, twisted fingers. He leaned slightly forward in his seat, slowly adjusting himself, careful not to activate the prickly needles of arthritic pain. He agreed.
A strong right arm is almost impossible to find,
he said before he quickly changed the subject.
But what of this crusade?
At the risk of incurring his boss's ire, Glory interceded again, knowing that he and the Pope shared an understanding that Everhard would neither suspect nor comprehend. Glory explained.
Seeing as how the Christian faith is beset by enemies on all sides, we're most desirous to be secure in the knowledge that the reins of the Catholic Church are held firmly in the hands of a warrior king. We simply seek assurances that you are that king.
The palace of the popes sits on Vatican Hill in the city of Avignon in the south of France. Completed in the mid-13th century, it's the largest medieval Gothic building in Europe. The palace was established as the church's alternate seat of power in 1309, when the French Pope Clement V, who'd been installed by French King Philip the Fair, had been run out of Rome after the arrests of the Knights Templar. It's been used at the church's discretion ever since. The present pontiff, in deference to his heritage, and in order to escape the Byzantine politics of Vatican City, had opted to return the seat of power to France. Inside the newly renovated Saint Martial Chapel on the second level of the Saint Jean Tower, Everhard and Glory sought to persuade the French Pope John the 27th. At the American president's insistence, all non-essential personnel had been dismissed. There were only the three of them in the chapel. The Pope showed no exception to having his leadership questioned. Glory, even though he was the provincial superior of the Society of Jesus in North America and served as head of the assistancy to the superior general of the Jesuits in Rome, was still the number 3 man in the room. Accordingly, the Pope addressed his remarks to Everhard.
These are indeed unstable times, Mr. President. As I find your prelude more than a little intriguing, I am compelled to question exactly why it is you requested this audience.
Everhard employed his famous smile. As Father Glory must have stated in our petition, we merely wish to enlist your Excellency's support in our efforts to quell the growing Muslim scourge.
No, I don't recall anyone mentioning that.
Everhard stared blankly without reply, prompting the Holy Father to ask,
How do you propose that I support you? We would be most appreciative if Your Excellency should issue a bull, decreeing in the name and for the sake of the cross that all able-bodied Central American Catholics take up arms against the Islamic apostates in defense of the faith.
The ludicrous nature of the request caused the Pope to giggle, which he unsuccessfully tried to cover with a pitiful cough. When Everhart's lips thinned in response, the Pope inveighed.
My God, man, certainly not serious. The diocese will never go along. They will, if you tell them to.
Pope John wasn't surprised by the American president's desire for war, but that he believed he'd have the Holy Father's compliance indeed was a surprise. The Pope had no incentive or desire to promote any interests other than his own. He'd not be distracted from his long-standing considerations by this ephemeral aberration. He decided to humor the president the sooner to be rid of him.
Let's suppose there's merit in your quest. How? In detail. Would you have my help?
Send emissaries into Central America. Instruct them to teach a new doctrine. They defend the cross doctrine, the basis of which is, the Muslims are coming to kill you. Use local labor throughout the territories to construct facilities to house and train local recruits for combat. Pay the workers and recruits a generous advance to get them started and a fair weekly wage thereafter. Any you can't recruit, conscript. I want entire towns and villages involved. Men, women, and children, everybody. Invite activist priests to be observers. This time, the Pope spoke to Galori.
You're aware the activists are Jesuits.
He was intimating that the order, which in Latin America had prima facie become quasi-revolutionary, would never agree with any such action.
We know who they are.
Sensing the Americans would have their say, the Pope resigned to listen, but asked,
And who will pay for this?
You will. And you must repeat, that the faithful are in for the fight of their lives. Make them understand that everything they love, everything they believe in, from the way they pray to the way they name their babies, is going to be stripped away from them. Make them understand and believe that the Muslims intend to slit their throats, drink their blood, and feed their children to the pigs. You promise them every eternal reward of heaven and anything else you can think of that will give them to take up arms in defense of the cross, especially any gang members. Swear to grant absolution to the great-grandchildren of any thug, dope dealer, armed robber, or murderer who dies or kills in the fight for Jesus. And buy something special, anything pretty for the women. Give them every reason to trust you. And if they resist, immediate excommunication for the lot. And if that doesn't make them reconsider, assemble them in the fields for official dismissal. Once they're neatly in formation, a couple of Black Hawks and some heavy artillery and ground fire should provide the desired result.
Sheer madness! You can't just slaughter the fruit of the field.
Not all of them, just the ones who don't fall in line.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Latin America is the last field of harvest for the church. Besides being morally bankrupt, it would be financial suicide. I can't now or ever agree to anything as implausibly insane as what you propose.
The continued references to insanity troubled Galori, yet there wasn't a hint of hostility in Everhart's tone when he replied.
I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. Let's not pretend the church is above politics. They didn't call Pius XII Hitler's Pope for no reason. Besides, how is what I propose any different from Croatian Franciscan friars murdering over 1 million Jews? But let me ask you this. What if the Muslims were to mount an invasion against your precious Latin America? Who's to say that can't happen? The Iranians have the bomb. Do the El Salvadorians have one? No? Then let me propose one last little detail. What good are your stupid peasants, or you for that matter, should the Muslims become the superior world power?
Now you're going to appoint Father Galori to the late Cardinal Bunsinger's seat as Secretary of the Vatican State. The declaration stunned the Pope. The position was a heartbeat from the papacy.
I know no such thing. The conclave of cardinals will never sanction it. What you propose carries the stench of the deepest bowels of hell.
Bowels of hell, huh? Well, not worried. The General Congregation of the Society of Jesus will deal with the cardinals. Make no mistake. These Islamic rogue riders intend to destroy all Christians. They don't distinguish between Catholics and Protestants, the same as we don't make distinctions between Sunni and Shiite. They'll chop your head off faster than Marie Antoinette's. Now you listen to me, you superfluous relic. You're to command every French, English, Italian, whatever brown, white grandmother who ever laid a finger on a rosary to plead the tears of Mary for their families to obey the Pope and consecrate themselves to the fight.
And if I refuse?
I needn't remind you that lurking in every corner of every parish there are lowly, ambitious priests who are at this very moment salivating to become bishops, and bishops who will stop at nothing to become archbishops. Pope John cast a spurious eye toward Galori before finishing Everhardt's sequence.
And cardinals, who would be pope? What can you offer me that I don't already have?
Everhardt met the Pope's gaze with sublime clarity and replied, "A future."